Hi everyone. This presentation is about William Shakespeare, and Shakespeare was kind of a mysterious person, or is kind of a mysterious person to us, because not much concrete is known about him. He left few personal records, few if any personal records. One thing is known is that he was born in Stratford-on-Avon, England in April of 1564, but the exact date of his birth is unknown. There are baptism records, but no birth record. His parents were John Shakespeare and Mary Arden, and this is a picture of the Shakespeare home. He married Anne Hathaway when he was only 18, and she was older than he was. She was 26. And they had 3 children, Suzanne, their first child, and then they had 2 twins, Hamnet and Judith, later. In what most scholars refer to as the lost years, Shakespeare disappears from all public records between the years of 1585 and 1591, so it's unknown exactly what he was doing at that time, but it is known that sometime during that period he went to London, because he reappears in the records in London by 1592. He probably arrived sometime in the late 1580s and spent some time establishing himself first as an actor and then as a playwright. He joined an acting group called Lord Chamberlain's Men and wrote his own plays. And by 1592 he was well known both as an actor and a playwright in the theatrical world. He had completed work on several of his early plays by 1592 and was very well established, as I mentioned earlier. His early plays were mostly what are called the comedies and the histories, so a couple of examples of the comedies are The Taming of the Shrew and Comedy of Errors, and the histories examples are Henry V and Richard III. In 1592, late that year, the theaters in London closed because there was a plague outbreak, so they didn't want people congregating all in one place. So during that time, Shakespeare wrote a long poem called Venus and Adonis. After the theaters reopened, he began working and producing more plays. So some plays that came out of that immediate period were Midsummer Night's Dream, Merchant of Venice, and Titus Andronicus. His plays became darker during this period and for the rest of his career, mostly, and he wrote his great tragedies during the period after 1594. King Lear is an example of that, Othello, Hamlet, and of course Macbeth. During that time, it's unknown over what period of time he actually wrote them, but he wrote 154 sonnets, and they were published all at once in 1609. Most of Shakespeare's plays were produced in the Globe Theatre, and as you can see from the picture, the Globe Theatre was a 3-tiered theater with a thrust stage. That means it thrusts out into the audience, and depending on how much you paid, you sat at different places in the theater. So the most expensive seats were on the top level that were covered from the elements, because of course these plays were produced outdoors during the day. They wouldn't have had electric lights or anything, so those were the most expensive and coveted seats. For a little less, you could sit on benches on the second level and also be covered, and on the bottom level you paid a penny and had what was called groundling admission. There would have been some special effects and music and whatnot, and these were very well attended, well received, sort of mass audience entertainment at the time. Shakespeare was writing during the reigns of 2 British monarchs, during the reign of Queen Elizabeth I for the first part of his career, and then King James the First also. And there's more about King James that's relevant to the play Macbeth. So Romeo and Juliet is, of course, a tragedy, and it's believed to have been written between 1591 and 1595. It's both a tragedy and a romance. It's based on the story of Pyramus and Thisbe. And that story comes from Roman mythology, and it's about two lovers in Babylon, and their parents were rivals, and they wanted to be married, but they couldn't because of their parents' rivalry. Their houses, ironically, shared a wall, and through a crack in the wall they would whisper declarations of their love to each other. They arranged to meet, and they arranged to meet under a tree, and Thisbe got there first and encountered, of all things, a lion, and she fled and left her scarf behind. So when Pyramus got there, he saw the lion and Thisbe's scarf and thought that the lion had devoured Thisbe. So in the honorable way of Romans at the time, he fell on his sword, committing suicide. So I hope you enjoy Romeo and Juliet, and this is the end of this presentation.